I'm with Anthony Harper, who is a journalist with Intermountain Christian News and a correspondent in the White House. Now, Anthony, what are you doing here in Jerusalem?
What I'm doing here is to interview Israel leaders and some other Israel policymakers about concerns about what is happening here in Israel regarding upcoming elections, the recent issue of Iran and the new development there, and the conflict that is happening in generally regarding the rise of anti-Semitism, and it's a lot of serious issues I'm dealing with at the White House.
So what subjects are you going to be covering here, and who are you actually interviewing?
Well, I interviewed the member of Knesset, Simcha Rothman, and Religious Zionist Party, but I'm hoping to interview with previous Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Knesset members and policymakers, and a lot of crucial issues that need to be dealt with. And the role at the White House is not an easy one, because I think I'm the only one there that's continuing to ask questions on anti-Semitism and exposing that.
So when you're in the White House, are your questions specifically about the situation to do with Israel?
Yes, I do. Israel-U.S. relations, and regarding UNRWA, which is that UN agency, stands for United Nations Relief Works Agency, about their anti-Semitic behavior, and that issue, along with other anti-Semitism concerns of BDS and the desecration of the Jewish cemetery in Vilnius, Lithuania, as well as Palestinian Authority pay to slay issue, and just in general the attack on Israel, the assault. Even Russia has threatened Israel.
So have you had many opportunities to ask questions to the press secretary in the White House?
For the last year, I've been able to get called on a couple of times, asked questions about anti-Semitism of Press Secretary Jennifer Psaki, and of also Admiral Kirby, who is part of the National Security Council with Biden, and then also there is another person with National Security Council, Jake Sullivan.
And what sort of questions have you been asking?
Well, recently asked with Admiral Kirby is about Russia threatening Israel. Now, we know Russia has been involved with this Ukraine issue. There's a serious crisis in Ukraine, but Russia has recently insulted and really kind of threatened the Jewish immigration agency in Russia to prevent Jewish people from making Aliyah. So that is one issue, but Russia's not very happy with Israel regarding the Leviathan, the natural gas, and wanting to supply Europe so that they're not dependent upon Russia's gas. So Russia feels threatened on several levels. And we didn't actually, by the way, have these problems during President Trump's time when I was at the White House. Russia was not making threats to invade Ukraine. It seemed to fairly peaceful relationships. And, of course, we know the Democrats would say that President Trump was colluding with the Russians and all that. False reports, and that proved to be totally untrue. But very serious issues that are going on.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of instability under Biden's regime rather than Donald Trump's regime.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's so much more instability. And the policies of the current Biden administration are really anti-Semitic in origin because of the conversations with Iran that, the U.S. should have nothing to do with Iran, giving money to Iran. We know during President Obama time there was money exchanged. There was help to provide to Iran, and there should be no nuclear arrangement because Iran is threatening Israel to wipe them off the face of the map. So President Biden should not have anything to do with Iran in this regards, and they can't be trusted on that matter. But, there are other policies that are considered anti-Semitic because Biden is refunding that anti-Semitic UN agency, UNRWA, which President Trump defunded after an investigation that I was involved, a U.S. senator, specifically the General Accounting Office, found that UNRWA was lying to the State Department about how those U.S. tax dollars are being spent.
So do you think that Donald Trump was right when he'd done some of these policies and he changed not giving money to UNRWA and also pulling out of the Iranian deal? Do you think he was right?
Totally right. I mean, he understood the threat of Iran, and he understood the concerns about anti-Semitism. He was really, more than any recent president, more of a blessing to Israel. And as you know, the U.S. Embassy opening here in Jerusalem, which I was at that event, but then also, the Golan Heights, recognizes the Golan Heights, Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and declaring Jerusalem the eternal capital of Israel.
Why is Israel important to your newspaper?
Well, it is because a lot of our newspaper audiences are evangelical Christians that do care about Israel. They support Israel. And as many people may be aware of, Christians United for Israel is a very large organization in support of Israel, and many of our readers are members of Christians United for Israel.
Do you think Israel is going to have to go it alone when it comes to Iran and a possible deal that comes in the future? Do you think Israel's going to have to go in and take out the nuclear capability of Iran?
It's very possible because given the Biden administration's resistance to Israel and the conflict with Iran, I don't know if I really trust the Biden administration to support Israel if Israel does have to do a strike on the nuclear reactors. And by the way, I did ask a question of Biden's communication director, Kate Bedingfield, about this hypothetical. I asked, what's a response to Israel if they bomb Iran's nuclear reactors? And she laughed. And other reporters in the White House laughed, just sloughed it off, and really was disrespectful for Israel's right to defend itself.
But it is actually a possibility this actually could literally happen, couldn't it?
Yes, it almost prophetical in a sense that would be happening here in the near future. But, this is important concerns for a lot of people, especially people in Israel, about U.S.'s reaction if they did that. The big question is, would the U.S. stop sending support to Israel, refuse to help with Iron Dome in any way, or any other support for Israel if Israel did that? Maybe Israel might have a fear that the U.S. would withdraw support, military support, or any other kind of support if they did that.
And now Joe Biden has just recently been to Israel and into the Palestinian Authority. Was it a good visit for him, do you think?
I don't think so. And, I didn't get to be on that trip, but it didn't seem to be much accomplished in that. It was a lot different than Obama's trip to Israel, where Obama had several public events, where Biden just kind of restricted the press just to the airport arrival. And many of the press, majority of the press, were not allowed to go to those other events. So I didn't see any really strong benefit for me being here, because all I could be was at the airport for just to see him and hear him say a few words which weren't impressive at all. So,
do you think he achieved anything politically here?
Not at all. I really think he just made things worse. And really gave a signal, really not a cooperative signal, a powerful signal in support of Israel at all.
Now, is anti-Semitism growing in America?
Oh, it is. Now, I'm from the state of Idaho. So we've had swastikas at the Anne Frank Memorial in Boise, Idaho, which is the capital of Boise. We have also had swastikas other places in downtown Boise. So it is on the rise in my own home state, I've seen. And in the U.S. Congress, actually, we have congressional members that are showing anti-Semitism in support of terrorists. With the whole Palestinian issue, I want to explain that I have been bringing up the true history of the word Palestine, in the sense that it was the Roman Emperor Hadrian that called the area Palestine. It was called Judea and Samaria before, but a lot of the media, a lot of people in the White House don't understand history, that a Roman emperor started all this. And so for that perspective, for Palestine and that issue, I don't know about Palestinian specific race of people. I don't know about Palestinian specific language that would identify them in that sense. But there is a lot of hostility towards Israel. And the PLO has been very hostile. Abbas, which has influenced UNRWA, and of course Hamas, hates Israel, and so many others.
Should Jews be concerned in America at the moment, and is it time for them to come back home to Israel?
I think they should be concerned to some degree, but it's been disappointing, though, that for some American Jews, actually many American Jews, part of the Democrat Party, I can't figure that out. Why would a Jewish person support the party that is funding anti-Semitism?
Now, you're American and a Christian, but your heart is clearly for Israel. Why Israel?
Because I really feel like an identification with Israel. I actually became interested in Israel from another journalist that would send me monthly subscriptions to Israel My Glory magazine. And when I saw that the Israeli national anthem was advertised in the magazine, and I purchased that and I started learning the national anthem, it became more real to me. And of course, for Christians, we have a Jewish Messiah, Yeshua.
Have you got any other questions that you're going to be lobbying in the future at the White House?
There's several questions to lobby. Whether they would call upon me or not is another issue. That they seem to be afraid of my questions of exposing anti-Semitism and questioning the Biden administration policy. But yes, I would continue questions about transparency. I've been involved and witnessed a news reporter protest at the White House. There's a video about that. It happened back, I think, in December of last year. But most recently, a majority of news reporters, including Sam Donaldson, a well-known reporter, along with the White House correspondent president, signed this protest letter complaining about the lack of access, transparency, how majority reporters are being excluded from attending the press events of Biden. It seems very clearly in this protest letter, and what I hear from other reporters, that the administration is trying to protect Biden from the press, that there might be a fear that he wouldn't be able to handle the press questions.
Have you got any questions about Israel as well for the future?
Well, I do, specifically for Israel, in light of Iran. I want to know from this administration, would they support Israel if Israel does have to defend itself and do a strike on the nuclear reactors of Iran to make sure Iran is never a nuclear country again.
Are you making a difference in the White House?
I am definitely making a difference, I think, for good, because of my influence with other reporters, educating them about the significance of blessing Israel, the history behind Israel, and from that perspective, yes, and being called on, bringing attention, because the whole world can hear my White House questions. When I'm asking questions of Jennifer Psaki, the whole world is witnessing those questions. They're hearing these concerns about anti-Semitism, about the viability of a two-state issue. I brought that up with Press Secretary Jennifer Psaki. If they're reconsidering the Palestinian Authority's two-state solution, and I've made it clear to them that it is, from a biblical perspective, from our audience, that it is wrong to support dividing Israel, because there is a scripture in the prophet Joel, in Joel chapter 3, verse 2 in English Bible, that says, "For God enters into judgment in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the nations that divide up his land and scatter his people." Clearly, God is angry, the God of Israel, angry towards people that divide up the land, and a two-state solution is for dividing Israel. And you may have seen a peace plan map that came out with Jared Kushner. It showed a Palestinian state in the heartland of Israel, totally unacceptable to the God of Israel.
So it's very, very important to have a Christian witness and a Christian influence in the White House.
It is, and we need more good, courageous Christian reporters there that are not afraid to address these issues of anti-Semitism. Currently, I'm, I guess, the primary one that is exposing this and other human rights violations. I do report also about the Chinese Uyghurs and about the forced sterilization and the organ harvesting. I'm asking questions at the White House, what they plan to do to influence China to stop that humanitarian problem, that human rights violation of the Uyghur people, but also the Afghanistan people. I was there during the Afghanistan withdrawal, and I'm close to the Afghanistan journalists there. I know Muslim reporters there, and I hear their perspective, and they are concerned about the human rights violations of Taliban that continue, ISIS, and so many more.
What's your prayer for Israel at this time?
Well, my prayer is really biblical prayer, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That I encourage people to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, to pray for Israel, and to bless Israel by all means. I want to point out a couple other scriptures from Genesis 12:3. It's referring to blessings for those that bless Israel and a curse for those that curse Israel, specifically to Abraham and his seed, which represents Israel. I was really interested, Paul, in Zechariah 12:3, where it talks about people would be injured if they disturb the status of Jerusalem, that Jerusalem is a stumbling block to many people. And especially, we know in the latter days, Jerusalem seems to be the pinnacle, the focus for many in the world, and for all the religions in the world. Jerusalem is the number one city that is the most controversial and probably the most valuable of any city in the world.
So the nations are heading towards destruction if they touch Jerusalem.
Totally, total destruction. We know from some prophecies in the Bible about the end-time scenario where the final battle ends up in Israel for nations that want to hurt Israel, to attack Israel. And we will see what we know from biblical history in the Old Testament, in Torah, and so forth, is that there has been many times in biblical history that the God of Israel punishes nations that terrorize Israeli people. He does allow terrorists into Israel in the past, and then he punishes the terrorizing nations that are abusive of Israel. They go overboard.
Okay, Anthony, thank you very much.
It's a blessing to join you. And I want to invite people to check out our YouTube channel because they can see what's going on at the White House. If people just check out Intermountain Christian News, YouTube, or my name, Dr. Anthony Harper, they can see what's being done at the White House. Many videos there of reporting there. And we're also on Rumble and Instagram and Twitter and other social media is Facebook.
You also have a website. What's your website for people who'd like to know more as well?
Website, Intermountain Christian News, imcnews.org. Just check out Intermountain Christian News, Google search for that, and you'll find it.